Would you use the same key on your house, your workplace, and your car? Sure, it sounds silly, but if you are using the same password on multiple of your accounts, it's kind of what you're doing. Now, I want you to think about one of your passwords. Just pick one, doesn't matter what it's for. Is that password being used for anything else? It could be as small as just an email that you made 10 years ago. If it's being used on another account, that is a problem. Please change it. Now, what happens if that password gets stolen? What are you going to do, and what do you think that the hacker's going to do? Because I can tell you, the hacker is not going to do anything nice. If that's your, work email, that could lead to some problems. Probably a very unhappy call from your IT department or to your IT department. And oh boy, if anything is connected to that account, there's a high likelihood you'd lose that too. Now, there are a few ways that a hacker can get your passwords. It's not just they just find them, although sometimes they do just find them. But you shouldn't have a weak enough password that they can just find them. We're going to start with data breaches. It's pretty simple. Through either some fault or no fault of their own, some company gets hacked. And during that hack, a hacker gets in and was like, hey, I want all your passwords to all of your users' accounts. And they get them. Luckily, most responsible companies will store your passwords in some encrypted format where it is much more difficult to get to them. And that means that if a hacker gets it, you've got some time, but not a lot of time, to get that changed. Looking at this chart here, if you've got anything less than, 11 characters, wouldn't fancy your chances for more than a, day or two. It really wouldn't fancy your chances. But as you get longer, it gets harder and harder to figure out what those passwords were. And depending on the level of diligence that the company actually put in, it can be near impossible. Part of why we moved to a 14-character minimum here at Oregon Tech is to help mitigate some of the problems that come with really short passwords. 14 characters, you start there, you get some pretty good results. To make a password more secure, it is sent through a complex set of math problems that turn it into a password hash, which is usually a long string of nonsense that can be authenticated as at one point being your password. This isn't just any math. This isn't the quadratic formula or Pythagorean theorem. This is something called a one-way hash. So it goes into the problem, and it is spit out in a very short amount of time. It's very, relatively, easy to do. To put it back through that problem, so you can't, it's virtually impossible. You can't just run it backwards. It doesn't work, which is why it's called a one-way hash. And it is so computationally intensive that nobody does it. You are not cracking a password by reversing the hashing function. Instead, they guess passwords, run them through the hashing function, and compare. Specifically, Hashcat, a very well-known program for exactly this, will, in brute force attacks, guess every combination of numbers and letters up to a certain length and spit out how many matching passwords it got back. Now, that's the slow method. And that is the method referenced by this chart, in case you were wondering. Then there's dictionary attacks, which are so much faster. Orders of magnitude faster, in fact, because they use lists of known passwords and just guess all of those with little modifications, and then you just repeat that for every known password. It's a very efficient program and kind of terrifying to watch. If you find out your password has been compromised, even if it isn't fully leaked in its readable form, you should probably change it as quickly as you can. You might have a couple of days. If you got a really good password, that can be up to years, but because of the way that humans enjoy to pick passwords, computers are really good at guessing them, which sucks. Length is generally the most important part of the password, but you do need some level of complexity, usually at random intervals wherever you feel like putting it, but you need to be able to remember it. Other ways that passwords can be stolen, other than data breaches, are phishing attacks. As you would know, if you've watched all the videos, which you definitely should, phishing is when you get an email and it effectively steals your information. Like, I'm hugely cutting down what that video actually went into, but effectively, they stole your data because you responded to an email, or because you clicked on a link, or this, that, or the other thing. Then there are malware attacks. Malware can come from so many different things. Be very wary of what you download from the internet, because it does not take a lot to just steal everything from your computer. You can make, there's very, very basic malware that almost anyone with enough knowledge can get their hands on that can do some serious damage. Get an antivirus if you can. If you can't, Windows Defender is fine. But if you're on OIT machines, you've got Sophos. And Sophos will help reduce the severity and likelihood of attacks, but that doesn't mean that you are not still responsible for using a computer safely. If your password is stolen by malware, long story short, change it immediately. It is incredibly important that you do so, because usually when malware takes your password, actually phishing does the same thing, but unlike data breaches, it's usually unencrypted. And they can just use it as soon as they want to. If you fall victim to phishing or malware, change your password. How do you pick a good password? It is really a complicated question, because humans are not very good at picking passwords that computers can't guess. First, semi-frequently, change your password. This can be like every year or so. Like, yearly is fine. Doesn't necessarily need to be that frequent, but that is what OIT demands, so that is what OIT gets. Change your password yearly. Now, the Oregon Tech minimum, and I'm saying minimum very clearly, do more than this. This is the bare minimum you can do. 14 characters with at least 3 of the 4 character types, that is uppercase and lowercase letters, numbers, and symbols. And if you can, 4 of 4, and as long as you can make it. But make sure you can remember it, because if you can't remember your password, it becomes more of a hindrance than anything else. Now, a solution to your memory is a password manager. It means you have to remember one password, and that is the key to all of your accounts. Password managers are, generally speaking, used in a way that if you sign in to the password manager, then it pulls up a whole vault of options. So you can sign into your OIT account with completely randomized credentials, and it works. You don't have to remember it, and if you picked well, it means it's almost impossible to guess. As you may have remembered from this graph right here, right down in this corner, looks great. If you can get that corner. I'm not going to recommend any specific one though, because that is a huge liability and I'm not taking it, but OIT is looking at potentially opening up a password management solution, so stay tuned on that. If you get a password manager though, make sure that one password you have to remember is incredibly secure, because it is the keys to the kingdom. It is part of why I recommend against using the same password on every account. If that password is compromised, you lose all of your accounts. Once again, turn on multi-factor, and if they don't support multi-factor, pick a different password manager, because that's risky. You are putting all of your eggs in one basket. Secure that basket. If you're not going to get a password manager, though, or you just really want to pick your own passwords, there are resources online to help you pick better passwords. There is a series by Computerphile on passwords. It's good. They know what they're talking about. I recommend you watch it. It's a fun watch. And if you think any of your accounts might have been compromised, there's a site, Have I Been Pwned? I recommend you go there, check it out. You got to type in like an email or a phone number, and they see if any of your accounts connected to that email or phone number have been compromised. You might be kind of uncomfortable to learn that they have, because I'd bet there's very few people that have not had at least one of their passwords compromised. But if it's been compromised and you haven't changed your password, fix that as quickly as you can. And if you have any worries about your OIT account, call ITS, we can assist you. Bottom line, turn on multi-factor. Yep, that's the point of this password video. Turn on multi-factor, every account. It's obnoxious. It's less obnoxious than recovering your account. Trust me, it's so much better than recovering your account. Now, after you do that, length is important. It's more important than having an extremely complex password, but if you can do both, that's even better. You should change your password yearly. You should make sure that you are at least at the minimum that OIT requires for all of your accounts, because these statistics, coming back to them, they don't just apply to your OIT account. They apply to your personal email, they apply to your Facebook, they apply to your Instagram. Security is incredibly important, because do you really want to lose everything on those? Hopefully you can recover it, but I don't ever want anyone to go through a password or a account recovery, if at all possible, to prevent it. If you have any worry that your account has been compromised, turn on MFA and change your password. If the company's doing a good job changing the password, will sign everyone else out of that account. You will have to re-sign into all of your devices on that account. Don't let that deter you, because that means that the hacker will have to do it too. I mean, hopefully that'll just keep them out. But as mentioned earlier, if you want to learn more about computer safety, passwords, how to pick a good one, and how they're broken, here's a series by Computerphile. They do a really good job explaining it. I referenced them heavily in the creating of this script. They know what they're talking about. It's a bit old, so just multiply the danger by like 5. Everything they say there, way more dangerous now. But that's just because computers have gotten even faster at cracking passwords. Stay safe and have a nice day.